I was 16 years old and my father allowed me to go.
I was just turned 17 at the time.
I was 16.
And I was 15 years.
When they came to us, they were frightened children and had to be made into soldiers.
All right, boys, here it comes. We're in the pictures.
I gave every part of my youth to do a job.
Stand this part of the trench over there.
There was a job to be done, and you just got on and did it.
Alienware finally made a thin and light gaming laptop, and it was worth the wait. For years, Dell's gaming brand has been pumping out powerful but hefty gaming machines. The Alienware M15, though, is its first step towards a truly modern laptop design. And it's here just in time. Throughout 2018, we saw companies like Asus, Razer, and MSI all deliver thin new machines of their own. The M15 is assigned Alienware won't be left behind. The Alienware M15 weighs 4.8 pounds and is 18 millimeters thick. That's a huge improvement over Alienware's earlier batch of notebooks, which are the sort of things only gamers could love. They're seriously heavy. The last 15-inch model weighed 7.7 pounds, and even the 13-inch version clocked in at almost 6. One reason for their heft was Alienware's huge cooling setup, which stuck out behind the displays like they were venting hot rods. Back when gaming laptops were clocking in closer to 10 pounds, Alienware's design seemed like they were on the cutting edge. And for the most part, it made sense to focus more on cooling than portability. But times have changed. Now gaming notebooks can be both powerful and portable. Even though it's a massive step forward for Alienware though, the M15 still lags a bit behind the competition when it comes to weight. The MSI GS65 Stealth Thin, for example, has similar specs but is noticeably lighter at 4.2 pounds. Still, it's nice to see Alienware playing in the under 5-pound arena. This is also its first notebook to feature really thin screen bezels, another major trend in gaming machines from last year. Unfortunately, there are still some hefty bezels at the top and bottom of the 15.6-inch display, which makes it look a little dated. On the whole, the M15 still looks distinctly Alienware, just toned down quite a bit. The magnesium alloy case is smooth and solid, and aside from some stylized speaker grills, a small LED Alienware logo on the back, and lights on the keyboard, there's really not too much extraneous bling. It's a surprisingly subtle design, which also makes the M15 a better fit in offices and classrooms than other Alienware notebooks. But really, if you're getting this machine, you're mainly concerned with games. And not surprisingly, the M15 is more than capable. Our review model included the NVIDIA GTX 1070 Max-Q, an Intel Core i7-8750H CPU, 16GB of RAM, and an NVMe SSD, as well as a 1080p 144Hz screen. It was pretty much built to push games to their limit at that resolution. While playing Overwatch with ultra graphics settings, I saw between 110 and 130 frames per second. And in Forza Horizon 4's benchmark, it reached an average of 77 FPS in 1080p with ultra settings. If you need more GPU power, you can also plug in Alienware's custom amplifier into the back of the M15 and tap into a desktop graphics card. You can choose from 1080p and 4K screens with a 60Hz refresh rate, or if you're more interested in high frame rates, there's also a 1080p 144Hz version. The 4K screen is the better choice if you're concerned about color accuracy though, since it covers 100% of the sRGB gamut, compared to just 72% on the 1080p monitor. With the high refresh rate display, the M15 can easily handle frame rates up to 144 FPS smoothly, without any of the hiccups you'd see on slower standard screens. It also helps that everything simply looks great on the display, from the raindrops against the camera while racing Forza, to the mayhem of huge Destiny 2 and Overwatch firefights. Thanks to Dell's display expertise, it's a great notebook for watching video too, though it's not as comfortable as true ultra portables when you're lounging on the couch. Even though Alienware had to move away from its huge exhaust cooling, the M15 still managed to stay under 85 Celsius while I was gaming. It did a solid job of pushing out heat, only the bottom back of the machine got too hot to touch after a play session.
As much as this thing seems, the drugs.
No, for tea or some donut.
It's here too. Stop by to say hi. I can't believe you've never had a cup of coffee.
Never.
You want some?
No.
That might be
no.
That might be the most outrageous thing about you is that you've never had coffee.
Your whole life, you've never had coffee.
No.
Did you just
tea? Never coffee.
No one ever offered you a cup of coffee?
No.
You never went to Starbucks?
Never. No, for tea or some donuts.
Wow.
What about like
that was when you when I was in when you're in rehab, you always gotta go to Starbucks because the meeting's right outside of Starbucks. You always hang out at Starbucks,
right?
But never for coffee.
You didn't want to try it?
Never.
That is that. How about like girlfriends' wives? Like none of them ever drank coffee at home.
I'm sure they have, but I never really. My wife drinks it.
And you just nothing.
Never.
Nothing. No. Well,
I'm so addicted to coffee.
All the stuff I did and all the drugs I did, you think coffee? coffee would be nothing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make any sense. When did you first try any drugs?
Kid, 10
When you were a
years
kid?
old, 9 years old.
What kind of shit?
Smoking and drinking.
Right.
Then as I got older, I tried acid.
How old were you when you first tried acid?
Probably 11.
Wow.
Yeah, real young.
Jesus, man.
Wow, that's real young. Wow. But when you were the champ, when you were in your prime, like when you beat Trevor Burbick, were you doing anything back then?
It's drinking a lot.
Drinking a lot, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Would you go clean for camp or like?
Yes, for camp. Yeah.
Just for camp.
Yes, for camp.
Yeah, but outside, like once fight's over, and
I'm an animal.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were the first guy that I ever used as an example of to break that old myth that you can't have sex before fights. And I was like, well, that's out the window.
For sure.
Because you would talk about it all the time. You'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Your logic made sense, too. You're like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be thinking about sex. I'll just get it out of the way.
Yeah, and it's over with. You don't have to do it. You have your refuel for the next 6 weeks and just go with your fight.
Do you think that was a myth, that it made you weak?
Yeah, I think it's a myth.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make sense.
It seems odd, yeah. And then, whenever there's
that
the
would
Olympics,
inspire you more so than disintegrate you.
Yeah,
I would think.
They said that the Olympic, where the athletes stay, is just like fuck fest.
Oh, of
They're
course.
just
I would
animals.
think so. Yeah. They have the boys and the girls in the same vicinity. Yeah. It would
Also,
be really
probably you want to
crazy.
alleviate some anxiety.
Anxiety.
You're freaking out. You're at the Olympics. You're 18 years old. You're like,
Yeah. And everyone's in amazing shape.
Yeah,
It's the best physiques.
stressed out.
Yeah. When you were first coming up, and when you were first, you like when you were Kid Dynamite on Sports Illustrated, I'll never forget that, man. That was your era from the 80s, the late 80s. That era, like. It was a big part of my youth, like you being, man, you being the champ. It was like, it was a change of things, because when Larry Holmes was the champ, as a boxing fan, I loved Larry Holmes. Like, there's that cover. You were 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
When Larry Holmes was the champ, as a boxing fan.
Wow, you still got that stuff, man?
You can still get those.
Yeah.
Sports Illustrated. It's the internet. You can find it on the internet. That's how Jamie got it.
Holy boy.
I had that Sports Illustrated. But when Larry Holmes was a champ, as a boxing fan, I appreciated him. I knew he was a great fighter. We would get together with friends and watch like the Michael Spinks fight with Larry Holmes. When Spinks beat him for the title, it was a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal culturally.
Yeah,
like, people didn't care as much. But then you came around, and when you came around, all of a sudden everybody's watching heavyweight boxing. If heavyweight boxing wasn't boring again, it was the most crazy, exciting thing in sports. When your fights would go on, it would be about, should I pay for this? Because how long is this going to last? Like, that had never existed.
That's pretty weird. People tell me about that all the time. They all chipped in and then turn the fight on this over with. I never think about it like that. Sometimes when it comes to my realization of the situation, I forget that I'm that guy. I forget that I trained that hard and I became a fighter and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, does it seem like a dream?
Yeah, pretty much like a blur.
because I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be 19 years old, 20 years old, to be that fucking famous.
It was a trip.
Who can handle that? Can anybody handle that?
No, it was a trip, but it was just what Custom Model, that was his blueprints to make me this teenage superstar.
Did he give you advice on how to handle pressure and fame? And
the pressure and everything, but he says really no ingredients on how to handle fame. You know what I mean? We have to see what Department of Fame is your problem, and we have to work on that issue from there. But no one knows how to conduct themselves under that kind of pressure.
No, I couldn't imagine.
It's the level of fame too.
Yes.
It's like there's so many. You realize there's so many levels of fame, and then Mike's is still just extraordinary. Where like people walk away from their job, like in an airport. They're supposed to be at the cash register and they run out. They leave their job to go say hi. That's not, most of the time you're like, oh, that's who that person is. It's a totally different thing.
How weird is that?
That's pretty weird.
Yeah.
It took time for me to get used to that stuff. I used to be one of those, get the fuck away from me, man. What are you doing, you creep? You know what I mean? Because I never knew how to conduct myself. Like, Mike, come here. Take a picture of my mother. Take a picture of my kid. Take a picture here. Take a picture here. I love you, this and that. I'm like, whoa, dude, cool out. You know what I mean? But now, I understand this is just what it is. It is what it is, and you're not going to be able to stop it.
Yeah, I've seen you at the UFC before. You're very calm around people. When people grabbing at you, want to take pictures, you just relax.
The UFC is awesome because everybody's nuts there.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild environment.
What do you think Khabib's going to do now?
What I think, who? Khabib?
Yeah.
Well, he does whatever the fuck he wants to do. That's what I think. I think that guy's probably the best lightweight of all time. He's a monster.
Incredible.
I think he's probably going to have some fights at 170 pounds eventually, if I'd imagine. At 155, there's good fights for him. Tony Ferguson's a great fight for him. I'm really interested in seeing that. I'm really interested in seeing him going up. I'm really interested in seeing him fight at 170 pounds. I think there's
Who's
a lot
up there
of
from the
fights for him.
fight?
Well, first of all, Tyron Woodley, who's the champ at 170, that would be an insane fight. George St. Pierre, if he decided to come back and make a big super fight, that would be an insane fight. I think 170 has a lot of opportunities for him. But I think 155 does too. They just have to figure out who's going to fight him. He's an international superstar now. Khabib, especially the way he smashed Conor. Conor's such a superstar already that the way Khabib won and did it so dominant, I think he's through the roof now. I think when he comes back and people see the pay-per-view numbers of his fights, they're going to realize how huge this guy is, because he's so interesting. He's very humble, he's very polite, very well spoken, very religious guy. Lives with his family, lives with his parents, lives with his parents and his family. I believe.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not speaking out of school. I believe that's true, and obviously doesn't have to for money. I mean, he's rich as shit now. Yeah. But he's just a monster. Best grappler I've ever seen inside the 155-pound division. He just smashes people.
What do you think about John Jones, though?
In what way?
And his skills.
He's phenomenal.
It's incredible.
The best ever at using distance. He knows distance better than anybody. He's a master at knowing when he can hit you and you can't hit him.
I miss watching him fight. You know what I mean? He's not fighting as much anymore.
He's back. He just won. Just won the title again. Just fought Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
For vacant title?
It was Daniel Cormier relinquished his title. And it was like, it's weird, right? Like Cormier is the champ because John Jones tested positive for something, so they stripped him, and then Cormier became the champ. It's, I think they'll probably fight again, whether they fight again at heavyweight or light heavyweight.
Really?
Yeah, I think Cormier and John Jones. If Cormier wants to, if he wants to keep going. But he says he wants to retire soon. He's 40,
Yeah.
He still looks good, though.
He looks great. Especially at heavyweight. Yeah, at heavyweight, he doesn't have to cut weight. He's got so much strength and just so agile. He's such an unbelievable wrestler, too. I mean, his wrestling skill, his skill level and understanding of wrestling is so high. It's so above most people.
Anybody he fight outside of John Jones, he dominated.
Yeah. That's how good John is. Yeah. John's that good. He's that good. I mean, it just sucks that he's had so many controversies in his life, but I'm hoping he puts all that shit behind him. Have you ever spoken with him about that?
Yeah, never about his personal life or anything, but we met before and talked.
But you're a guy who's gone, I mean, when you went through legal problems yourself, you overcame, you came out of it on the other end. I would think a guy like him could benefit a lot from
Yeah,
talking
but
to a guy
you know,
like
so
you.
it's just so difficult and it's so unfortunate that he has to go through something like that. You know.
Do you think so?
Yes, it's really unfortunate. You know, because sometimes people they don't survive situations like that
Because they're so wild and they're having a good time too much and they're partying. End of the champ.
It has to come to an end. That stuff. If you don't bring it to an end, it's gonna come to its own end. It might not like that way it ends.
Yeah. So you think for a guy like him, maybe getting in trouble was a good thing?
If only if you learn from experiences like that.
Yeah.
You know.
I
was just a wild guy. I was really a wild guy. I look at myself now and I say to myself, when I spent all those trips in those psych wards and stuff, I said, what was that all about? What was wrong with me back then? You know?
Yeah.
And I was really disturbed back then.
But you're somebody who got to the point where you got like, it's really fascinating because I know you're a public figure. So I've been able to watch you my whole life. You went through all that stuff, and then you got to this point where you're very self-reflective. And you are able to comment on it. I don't think most people, regardless of whether they're famous or not, just still don't get to that point where they're able to look back and examine who they were and doing wild shit and
with ruthless honesty.
Yeah, that's what's so great.
You have to reflect on yourself to discover who you really are.
Yeah. When you're 20 years old and all of a sudden you're the heavyweight champion of the world, and just a few years ago you were poor, and now all of a sudden you're the king of the world.
That's really crazy. You know, so young, it's really crazy. I was unable to handle it. I wasn't expecting that. That was a really sucker punch right there.
Charlie Murphy.
That's a real sucker punch right there. I wasn't ready for that one.
Charlie Murphy told us a story, and it's animated. It's on YouTube now, of you and him coming over your house in a limousine, and you had was it a lion or a tiger?
Tiger. See, he must have thought it was a lion, but yeah, the tiger.
Dude,
it is one of the craziest fucking stories.
So for people that don't know, I got to hang out with you at one of my shows one time, and it was I had the best time talking to you about everything. What made you think you could get a tiger? Like, how did that even happen?
Hey, I'm in this is really interesting. I'm in prison at the time. So I'm in prison. I'm talking to my car dealer at the time, and he has some cars that belong to a friend of mine that's both a friend of ours, and he's discussing if he doesn't pay for these cars, I'm going to sell these cars to somebody and get some horses and stuff. I said, what, you can get horses and trade horses in for cars? Because I had a lot of cars, so I said, I'll probably get some horses too. And he said, yeah, man, you get cougars, lions, tigers. I know this guy got exotic. I said, you do? Can you get me some tigers? He said, yeah. And the guy told me, and the guy said, man, imagine how cool that be you be, because I had a bunch of fancy cars. Imagine that, man, you be in an Aston Martin or a Ferrari and you have a tiger right next to you, man. That would be so awesome. And I'm a young guy. I'm in prison. I'm saying to myself, wow, that would be cool, right? I said, yeah, get me some cubs, man. And then when I came home, I had those cubs right there waiting for me.
So you raised them as cubs?
Yeah.
Because that's how you were. Because I would see footage of you like fucking smacking them around and jumping on one of your tigers, and I was like, holy shit.
Oh, no, I had them since they were babies. They had their mothers. Their mother since they were babies.
Now, did it ever get... This is a crazy picture. You in your underwear with a tiger on a chain. That is one of the...
That's the champ right there.
That's you at peak crazy.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah.
Tom, what was going through my mind? I don't know what made me think about... My friend said, Mike, you can get some awesome animals. And I'm saying, really? Are you serious? He said, really? I'm going to get some horses.
Everybody does it, though. Those are one of the things about... what's his face from Narcos?
Oh, Pablo Escobar. He got like a fucking zoo.
Escobar had a whole crazy zoo. They all do it.
Once you get like that rich, you're like, just get some animals.
Yeah, you want to fuck with some animals. You think let's get some animals. Fuck these people, let's get some animals. And they throw people in there with the lions and tigers, huh?
Yeah.
Get in there, you motherfucker.
It's a real common thing with like super rich people. They start getting lions, tigers, and shit.
Michael Jackson had all that stuff too.
That's right. Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson and everything. Yeah, Hugh Hefner too. Hugh Hefner had like a zoo in his backyard.
That's true.
But he had weird shit, like weird birds.
Yeah.
I don't think maybe